Hey, hope you're having a nice day. Had some thoughts on induction and deduction. They're important basic things in logic. Now, in the video, I'm going to kind of generalize concepts and generalizations. I'm just going to include in like forming concepts and forming generalizations. I'm just going to include in the whole inductive thing and call it induction. And then using those things, we'll just call deduction. Later on, when you learn more of this, you're beyond the basics, then you see how concept formation works versus how generalization works. One makes concepts, the other makes propositions, but they're both generally inductive processes, so we're going to call them induction in this video. They are things we should be learning in school. Everyone who graduates from high school, or even heck, junior high school, should know about induction and deduction. They are basic ways in which our minds operate. If there's anything we should know and learn in education, is how our minds work and how to reason correctly, how to be logical and connect our ideas to the world, make sure we're correct, make sure they're true. That's not something, they are not something that happen automatically, that connection. We need to know these things so we know how our minds work and so we can control the process. It's important when we're drawing conclusions, when we're communicating with others, conclusions and communications also of all sorts regarding relationships and friendships and things at work, making important decisions about economics, and when we're building things, making decisions or teaching people, helping people in regard to health, building a bridge, exercise. We do things wrong and someone can get hurt or die. And I don't think any of us want that. Now, induction is the process of forming a generalization. You go from concrete things to a general case, whereas deduction is a process of using a general case. You have a general case and you apply it to a particular thing. So induction goes from ground up and deduction goes from up back down. Deduction is used a lot in everyday life. For example, when you walk into a restaurant you've never been into, you don't freak out at these things walking around in clothes or at some flat surface, these flat surfaces sitting here and there. You know from past experience, from your concepts, that certain of those things are people and certain of them are tables. And you know how people operate in general and tables operate in general. You have a lot more to learn about people, and their variation in behavior can be a lot different from that of a table, but the basic ideas, and basically what's going to happen with a person who's a waiter and other people who are patrons and the cook and the people you're there with. And with the table, you go up to it and you're going to sit down at it, and it's not going to become water and flow away or float up in the air or do something strange. A table is a table. Now, induction is the process by which we form those ideas in the first place. So we couldn't deduce unless we first induced. Now, induction would be the process of forming the idea of person or human being. When you're growing up, you see a lot of individual things that behave differently than everything else around you. You see some things move around on 4 legs, some things move around on 2, some things don't move, some things fly in the air, and you learn that some of these things that walk around on 2 legs make noises differently than other things do. And through all this information on certain things you're focusing on, embedded in a whole perceptual context, you form the concept of human being or person. Similar with table. We don't just get table out of context. We get the concept of table embedded implicitly in a lot of knowledge. concepts are always embedded in a context. So a table we see is a flat surface inside a house on which we place smaller things. You've got coffee tables, side tables, a table called a desk, dinner tables, and their function is to hold smaller objects next to us or when we sit down to it. It's automatically contrasted with things like chairs or beds or appliances such as dishwashers, refrigerators, washing machines, and it's embedded implicitly in the context of house or human dwelling or building. Now, deductions applied in a context too, but notice it's a lot more limited. It's based on the context that you formed when you induce something. And so notice the importance of induction. If you don't induce properly, then it's going to limit your deductions, your ability to apply concepts, because you won't have that knowledge in the first place. And that's one issue we see, unfortunately, in medicine and nutrition and exercise. In those areas, a lot of concepts are stripped of context. It's just done because of convention or authority. And so unfortunately, some poor decisions are made sometimes. And so again, you notice that induction goes from specific to general. You see, when you're growing up, a bunch of individual people in a context, and then you form the concept of person, human being. You see several individual tables. You see that they're similar and how they're different from other things, and then you can form the concept of table. And when we're young, we induce a lot of concepts: clothing, cat, dog, tree, grass, a great deal of things we learn when we're young implicitly, shadow. Then when we're older, we're learning a lot more about those concepts, inducing a lot more, bringing a lot more context and knowledge and analysis into play. So I hope that helps with the basic idea. Induction and deduction are basic ways in which our minds work, and it's important to know how they work so we can be aware of that and control the process, make sure we're doing things correctly. Induction is a very complicated thing. We've got to make sure we have the right things contrasted with others, like tables versus chairs and beds, and make sure it's embedded in the right context to form the right conclusion. It's important for concepts such as education, freedom, rights, science, health, nutrition, things like that. So remember, again, to repeat, induction goes from particular things, such as particular dogs, to the general idea of dog, or from particular governments to the general idea of socialism, or particular governments to the general idea of fascism, or democracy, or capitalism. Now, deduction goes from the general to the particular. We apply an idea we already know. So we know that a steak is good for us, so we eat it. Or we've learned and induced that sunshine produces vitamin D, which is good for us, so we make sure we get outdoors as much as possible for at least half an hour or an hour a day to make sure we're getting the vitamin D we need to be healthy and to thrive, not merely to exist. Hope this helps you understand the basics about induction and deduction. If you have any comments or questions, just let me know, or you don't need any follow-up on this, let me know. Hope you have a good day.